Please share your location in the comments section as we begin today's story. And remember to like and subscribe. In Evan Hart's home office, a late afternoon sun created long shadows, highlighting the modern furniture and walls adorned with architectural awards. Standing at 6 feet 2 inches tall, 42-year-old Evan maintained a fit physique from early morning workouts that complemented his successful career. His steely gaze focused on his wife, Tessa, who paced with rehearsed precision before him. Tessa's voice was tinged with irritation as she prodded Evan for a response. Instead of the expected emotional outburst, Evan remained composed and asked with a neutral tone, "What exactly do you want me to address? The affair with Caleb or the attempted theft of my designs?" His eyes studied Tessa's designer outfit, a recent purchase on his credit card. As his words cut through the tension in the room, Tessa hesitated briefly before regaining her composure, flipping her flawlessly styled dark hair. "Ah, so you've heard about Caleb. Good. That simplifies things," she said, a cruel smile forming on her red lips. "Your brother embodies everything you lack. Bigger, stronger, more fulfilling." Evan maintained his impassive expression, noticing the faint tremor in her hand, a tell he had observed since they first met 15 years ago, indicating when she bluffed in poker. "Is that all?" he inquired calmly. Tessa's voice rose in pitch. "I'm leaving you for your twin brother, and that's how you respond, is that all?" Closing the distance between them, her Jimmy Choo heels clicking on the hardwood floor, she continued, "Caleb has promised me a substantial stake in your family's engineering company. We're relocating to his beachfront residence with that ocean view you could never afford because you were too consumed with ethical commitments in your projects." Evan's lips barely twitched, his gaze penetrating. "The same beach house he boo. Caught red-handed with embezzled company funds? How intriguing." Tessa's composed demeanor wavered momentarily, but she quickly regained her composure. "You're lying. Your jealousy towards Caleb's carefree spirit is palpable, while you devote every waking moment to your beloved Bridges." "My beloved Bridges," Evan repeated dryly. "They funded everything you're adorned with." His eyes drifted to her left hand, where a sapphire ring from Caleb shone conspicuously. "The one you thought went unnoticed." Tessa instinctively concealed her left hand with her right. "My parents have accepted our relationship. They acknowledge Caleb as the rightful heir to the company throne," Tessa boasted, her tone smug. Evan redirected his attention to his computer, effectively dismissing her. "If that's all, you may leave. I have work to complete." "Work?" Tessa sneered with contempt. "Your precious earthquake-resistant bridge design. Caleb deems it fundamentally flawed. You are way too focused on work, Evan. You're unable to please a woman or enjoy life. Caleb is much better than you in every way." Evan casually responded, typing away on his keyboard, displaying his lack of concern. "Please close the door on your way out," he added. Tessa hesitated, her rehearsed argument fading as Evan remained unperturbed. Eventually, she left in a rush, slamming the door behind her, causing the awards on the wall to shake. After waiting for Tessa to drive off, Evan calmly composed an email to his FBI contact. Later that night, in his private room with a glass of untouched whiskey, he watched the recorded security footage, impressed by its clarity despite the darkness. He spent hours reviewing past recordings. Recorded betrayal unfolded in several instances. On February 14th, Caleb and Tessa surreptitiously entered Evan's home office at 2:00 a.m. using an unauthorized key. Then on March 3rd, Caleb was caught photographing documents on Evan's desk while Tessa stood watch. The climax came on April 17th, with footage revealing both of them hijacking Evan's computer. While Tessa created a diversion with a phone call regarding a manufacturing crisis, Caleb tampered with Evan's hard drive. Evan had initially installed the security system due to prior break-ins at sites housing valuable engineering plants, though he had played it off as mere paranoia. In reality, subtle indicators had hinted at the betrayal. Tessa's unexplained disappearances, Caleb's sudden interest in Evan's projects, and the unauthorized access to Evan's files during his absence at conferences now came into sharp focus. The damning footage ultimately confirmed Evan's worst fears. His twin brother wasn't just having an affair with his wife. They were colluding to steal his groundbreaking bridge design, poised to revolutionize construction methods in an earthquake-prone area. Evan was interrupted from his work by a knock on the study door. Glancing at the security panel, he saw it was his friend of 20 years and the firm's legal counsel, Vivian Taylor. Instead of her usual confident demeanor, Vivian appeared nervous and tense as she entered, clutching her designer handbag tightly. Evan greeted her without rising from his seat, aware of the seriousness of her demeanor. "Come in, Vivian," he said, motioning for her to sit. "What's on your mind?" "I need to talk to you about Caleb," Vivian began, her voice sounding constrained. She remained standing, visibly tense as she held onto her bag. Evan anticipated her next words and preemptively turned his monitor to show her incriminating footage. "6 months ago, Caleb sought your help to transfer my patents to a shell company. You agreed despite knowing the illegality and ethical breach involved as my attorney," Evan calmly stated. Vivian's expression turned pale as the realization settled in. "How did you find out?" she asked, a hint of panic in her voice. Evan's smile was devoid of warmth as he replied, "I've been aware for a while. I just wanted to see how far this would go. Everyone must leave. The answer appears to be quite distant. Evan, allow me to clarify." Vivian started, her voice trembling. "Caleb mentioned that it was what your parents desired, expressing concern for your well-being. He had forged papers." Though Evan maintained his composure, Vivian unconsciously took a step back. "Spare me your excuses, Vivian. You know the way out, and anticipate contact from the Bar Association first thing tomorrow morning. You can't put me in this position." Vivian's facade crumbled, her voice straining. "I've been your friend for 2 decades. I even attended your wedding. Yes, you were there." Evan returned to his screen, his demeanor unwavering. "Your deception is especially intriguing from a legal and ethical standpoint. The disciplinary board is sure to find it captivating." Without looking up, he added, "Shut the door when you leave." Vivian stood motionless for a moment, her lips moving soundlessly, before hastily leaving the room. Evan waited until her car drove off before resuming on his phone. Evan accessed a secure messaging app with ease and sent a message. "Initiate Phase 2 tomorrow morning." The immediate response confirmed that the FBI team was ready, and the operation would commence at 900. Evan then indulged in a small sip of whiskey, contemplating the upcoming board meeting where his family and Caleb would likely push for him to take a leave of absence, unaware of the trap he had been carefully crafting for years. Ignoring a call from Tessa, who was likely to make more dramatic declarations, Evan focused on preparing for the next day's confrontation. As he delved into reviewing security footage, he reflected on the office space of the Hart Engineering Group, situated across the top floors of a prestigious skyscraper that he had contributed to designing early in his career. Arriving early for the 10 a.m. meeting, Evan was poised to reveal the true extent of his plans to those who had underestimated him, writing for clarity and conciseness. Dressed impeccably in a charcoal suit, his demeanor calm, the executive conference room fell silent upon his entrance. Robert and Eleanor Hart, Evan's parents, sat at the head of the table alongside Caleb, who looked surprised and guilty. Robert, regaining composure, attempted to ease the tension by mentioning they hadn't expected him given the situation with Tessa. Evan placed his briefcase on the table deliberately before addressing the unauthorized access to his designs, attempted patent theft, and Caleb's creation of a shell company to sell his work to competitors. Caleb, suddenly defensive, accused Evan of lying and having a breakdown, to which Evan calmly responded by removing a "Do you want to see the evidence, Caleb?" Vivian asked as she sat at the table. "I believe this is all just a misunderstanding. Caleb has only been worried about you, working long hours and being overly cautious about security." Evan glanced at his watch and responded, "The FBI doesn't see it that way. They are particularly interested in cases of corporate espionage. They should be arriving any moment." Right on cue, the conference room doors swung open, revealing 2 men in dark suits followed by a group of FBI agents in jackets. The lead agent held up a bag and identified himself as Special Agent Nelson. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of corporate espionage, wire fraud, and embezzlement, he stated firmly. Kayla, this is nonsense. Father, please do something, pleaded Caleb as he moved away from the table. Robert, his face flushed with anger, stood up. Evan, put an end to this outrage. Immediately, he's your brother, Evan replied, his tone cool. Was my brother, he continued. Now he's just another corporate criminal about to face federal charges. I'd advise everyone to fully cooperate with the investigation. Agent Nelson's team will require access to all company records. As agents approached Caleb, his voice cracked. You can't do this. He looked towards his mother. Tell him, Mother, Caleb pleaded. Eleanor, tears welling in her eyes, turned at Evan. Please, sweetheart, he's your twin. Let's work this out as a family. Family, Evan repeated, his smile cold. Interesting word choice. Given recent events, Agent Nelson, I believe you'll find the evidence particularly intriguing. The records are in the folder on the table. The agents led Caleb away in handcuffs, his protests echoing down the hallway. Robert and Eleanor sat in stunned silence as FBI agents started setting up equipment around them. Evan stood up, adjusting his cuffs. One more thing, he said. Given the current situation, I've called an emergency board meeting for noon. We'll need to discuss the leadership transition. I suggest everyone review the bylaws before then, particularly the sections regarding the removal of officers involved in criminal activities. Without another word, he walked out, leaving his parents to face the consequences of their actions. His phone buzzed again. Tessa, likely having heard about Caleb's arrest, but Evan silenced it without a second glance. The day wasn't over yet. By nightfall, everyone who had betrayed him would understand exactly who they had crossed. Evan allowed himself a small smile as he entered his private office, closing the door on the chaos behind him. The real work was just beginning. The news of Caleb Hart's arrest spread quickly throughout Hart Engineering Group. Employees gathered in hushed clusters, their smartphones buzzing with updates as FBI agents methodically worked their way through the building's top 3 floors. Dean Langley, watching from his corner office, saw agents carrying boxes of documents. As Dean walked past his door at 55, he had spent decades managing projects for the firm, growing increasingly resentful of Evan Hart's meteoric rise. Now, with Caleb in custody and chaos erupting, he sought his opportunity. Evan's phone lit up with an incoming call from Tessa Hart, now Tessa Bowen, having reverted to her maiden name just hours after Caleb's arrest. Tell me you have something we can use. Tessa's voice carried a sharp edge of desperation beneath her usual arrogance. Dean smiled, running a hand through his thinning hair. Better than that. I've got proof Evan's been making critical errors in his calculations, errors that could bring down entire buildings. Are you sure? Because we need something solid. Caleb's lawyers are useless, and his parents are in complete shock. Trust me. Dean pulled up a file labeled hart-evanedits.paf on his computer. I've been documenting his mistakes for months. Once the board sees this, they'll have no choice but to remove him. I've already scheduled an emergency. During a meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning, Tessa expressed her satisfaction audibly, her smile shining through her words. Caleb had described Evan as brilliant, but prone to paranoid delusions. Dean, wrapping up her thoughts, explained their plan to expose Evan's dangerous mistakes and make the FBI investigation appear as a mental breakdown. With the goal of demonstrating the need for stability and experience on the board, Tessa subtly hinted at Dean's capabilities. As Dean ended the call, a sense of contentment filled him. Finally, Evan Hart's downfall was in motion. Meanwhile, in his home office, Evan was engrossed in reviewing security footage from his installed cameras, a precautionary measure justified by his paranoid reputation. Little did Dean know that every word spoken during the call was being watched by Evan. Evan was engrossed in watching the recorded video feeds when he was interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Layla Park, his executive assistant of 8 years, entered with a touch of concern in her usual professional demeanor. The PR team needs your response to the press inquiries, and Mr. Langley has called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning, she informed him. Evan couldn't help but smile slightly and asked, "What's on the agenda?" Leela hesitated before replying, "Questions about project safety and leadership stability. There are also rumors about your mental health, and Mr. Langley's assistant mentioned errors documented." Evan nodded knowingly and turned his monitor to show Leela the incriminating video footage. "How long have you known about Dean's clandestine meetings with our competitors?" Leela's eyes widened as she watched Dean's interactions with rival executives. "Is that why the C projects were delayed?" she inquired. Evan explained, "Delayed projects lead to extended contracts, which means more opportunities for use of N. Discussing opportunities for kickbacks." Forwarded several files to his secure server, noting the FBI's interest in Mr. Langley's offshore accounts. "Should we cancel tomorrow's board meeting?" "No," Evan responded with a smile devoid of warmth. "Let Dean have his moment. Just ensure that every board member receives the evidence folder 10 minutes after his presentation begins." Leela nodded in appreciation and inquired about the PR statement. Evan mentioned the standard response of no comment on ongoing investigations before focusing on his monitors. He expressed gratitude to Leela for not succumbing to Caleb's attempts to bribe her into spying on him. Leela assured him that she had recorded all 3 instances. Understanding her loyalty, Evan acknowledged her as the only person in the company he fully trusted. After Leela left, instead of returning to his surveillance feeds, Evan's attention turned to Tessa, who was creating a scene at an upscale restaurant discussing her divorce situation. As Evan accessed the restaurant's security system as he had months ago, he heard her voice coming through clearly, lamenting how no one would listen despite Caleb's warnings about his deteriorating state for years. Now seeing his brother in an orange jumpsuit at the county jail's visitor area, Evan couldn't help but feel a pang of regret. Caleb was desperately trying to explain to their parents about protecting the company from him, emphasizing his brother's instability. Eleanor Hart reassured Caleb that they would fix everything with their father's connections. Evan switched feeds, knowing that in 12 hours, Dean Langley would be presenting falsified evidence to the board, leading to his downfall in 13 hours. The beginning of the end for Dean Langley was just the start of the turmoil within Hart Engineering Group, as the main boardroom was packed with anxious board members the next morning connecting his laptop to the presentation system. He exuded confidence with every movement. Evan remained silent at the opposite end of the table, his face impassive as he watched his project manager, anticipating the confrontation. Tessa sat near the front, her stylish outfit and impeccable makeup providing a stark contrast to her red-rimmed eyes, a marked difference from her composed appearance in the restaurant security footage from the previous night. "Thank you all for being here." Dean's voice was solemn as he began. "What I am about to show you is challenging, yet crucial for the security of our company and clients." The first slide appeared, showcasing a series of intricate calculations with crucial sections highlighted in red. "These calculations are from Evan Hart's design for an earthquake-resistant bridge," Dean explained. "As you can see, there are significant errors in the stress load calculations that could lead to disastrous consequences." Evan observed the board members leaning in, studying the technical data with furrowed brows. He made a mental note of their reactions, acknowledging those who nodded in agreement for future reference. Dean proceeded to the next slide, noting a troubling pattern of mistakes over the past year along with Mr. Hart's recent paranoid behavior, resulting in federal investigations against his own brother. Suddenly, Evan's voice interrupted, questioning the timestamp on a document showing it was modified last night at 11:47 p.m. Dean hesitated before explaining that it was just a formatting adjustment. Evan then directed Leela to distribute folders to the board members, suggesting they review the materials before posing any questions. The room fell silent as everyone opened their folders, and tensions rose as faces displayed a range of emotions from confusion to shock to anger. The head of the board, addressing Mr. Langley, inquired about suspicious bank transfers and emails discovered in the folders, prompting a need for explanation. Dean's face did not turn gray at the mention of kickbacks from contractors. Evans calmly pointed out that this was exactly the issue he had been discussing. Evans presented paranoid accusations supported by extensive documentation, which had already been shared with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Moments later, two FBI agents entered the boardroom, with lead agent Dean Langley showing his badge and requesting their presence. Dean tried to protest but was led away in handcuffs, much to the shock of Tessa, who had underestimated Evan's determination. The second agent asked Tessa to remain available for questioning about her involvement in the events. As Dean's protests echoed down the hallway, Evan watched in silence, knowing that they had taken the first step towards justice, just as they had done with Caleb the day before. The board members sat in shocked silence, trying to digest the evidence of years of fraud and kickbacks. Evan, standing up and adjusting his tie, suggested discussing the current status of their projects. He assured them that all calculations were accurate and independently verified. The subsequent week brought more turmoil to Hart Engineering Group. As Evan sat in his office going over reports, Lila updated him on the aftermath. The arrest of Dean Langley had made headlines in the industry, and his confession had dragged in 3 other project managers and 2 rival companies. The FBI's investigation was expanding. Lila paused, mentioning that her parents were still working on securing Caleb's release, but directed Evan's attention to something important. She handed him a tablet displaying internal company documents she had found while organizing the digital archives. These documents revealed shared transfer agreements from 5 years ago, showing that Evan's parents had secretly transferred 15% of the company to Caleb. Evan carefully reviewed the documents. Evan remained stoic as he reviewed the documents. He was unfazed by the discovery. Lila had uncovered additional files linking to unreported transfers and tax irregularities over the past decade. Evan sent the files to a secure address for potential IRS investigation. Lila suggested scheduling a meeting with Evan's parents to address the transfers, but Evan declined, indicating that they would soon have more pressing matters to attend to. Before leaving, Lila mentioned that Tess had new information about Caleb's activities. Evan calmly instructed to redirect Tess's calls to the FBI tip line. After Lila departed, Evan accessed his private email to anonymously inform the IRS about his parents' tax evasion. This action would set in motion events that would soon come to a head. One week, their carefully maintained reputation would begin to crumble. His phone buzzed. It was Tessa again, this time with a text. "Please, Evan, we need to talk. I know things about Caleb you need to hear." Evan added the number to his block list without responding. On his screen, security footage showed Tessa pacing in her hotel room, makeup streaked with genuine tears. Her world was collapsing. A soft chime indicated an incoming email from his FBI contact. Second round of arrests scheduled for tomorrow. Surveillance confirms target locations. Proceed as discussed. Evan typed back, "Proceed." He'd waited years to dismantle the corruption in his family's company. Now, piece by piece, every betrayal would be answered. Later that night, Evan's home security system pinged with an alert. The camera showed 2 figures approaching his house. Caleb, apparently released on bail, and Tessa, both moving with the clumsy urgency of desperate people. Evan watched from his study as they used Tessa's. As entered his home office, neither he nor Tessa noticed the silent alarm had already alerted the police, nor the cameras recording their every move. "Find the designs," Caleb, Tessa ordered, her voice tense and her disheveled appearance revealing her recent prison stay. "If we can destroy the originals before the FBI processes all the evidence, they're not in the safe," she continued, frantically pulling open drawers. "Wait here." Caleb grabbed the papers and hastily started shredding them by hand. "Once these are gone, it'll be our word against his about the theft. We can still spin this as his paranoid breakdown." Suddenly, the office door slammed shut with an electronic buzz, and both intruders spun around as lights flooded the room. "Police. Hands where we can see them," Evan observed through the cameras as Caleb and Tessa were handcuffed. Their faces shifted from shock to horror as they realized the designs they destroyed were obvious decoys. The real plans had been secured offsite months ago. Along with backup, she made copies of all the evidence against them. His phone rang with a call from the police sergeant. "Mr. Hart, we've apprehended 2 intruders. Would you like to press charges?" Evan stayed composed as he replied, "The FBI will want to include this in their current case." I'll send over my security footage right away." He ended the call, observing as Caleb and Tessa were escorted to separate police cars. Their betrayal had been total, leading to their ultimate downfall. Although new challenges awaited the next day, Evan found a moment of satisfaction in seeing his enemies brought to justice. Their attempt to destroy him had only led to their own demise, a result he had orchestrated every step of the way. The federal courthouse loomed large as Caleb Hart was escorted inside, now in prison attire instead of his usual designer suit. His demeanor subdued as he walked with shackles to media gathered outside, cameras flashing as reporters shouted questions about corporate espionage and embezzlement. Special Agent Nelson stood with Evan in an observation room. Watching through the one-way glasses, Caleb was seated for questioning. 3 months of investigation had uncovered far more than the initial patent theft. "Your brother's been busy," Nelson said, reviewing his files. "We've traced over $12 million in embezzled funds. That beach house, built entirely with company money, laundered through shell corporations." Evan watched as Caleb fidgeted, his handcuffs clinking against the metal table. "How long?" Evan asked, his voice flat. "Given the scope of the crimes, 10 years minimum." "The corporate espionage charges alone," Nelson added. Glancing at Evan, he continued, "He's offering to testify against your parents in exchange for leniency." "Of course he is," Evan replied, his smile cold. Always trying to save himself at someone else's expense. As the interrogation room door swung open, Caleb's latest confession hung in the air. The lawyer, the third to represent Caleb since his arrest, walked in with a thick folder containing numerous plea agreements. As Caleb's face lit up with desperate hope, it quickly faded as the FBI's financial crimes investigators began laying out their evidence: bank records, wire transfers, emails, and security footage. The case had been meticulously built starting with Evan's initial evidence and had now grown into something substantial. Nelson noticed Caleb's brother crying, prompting Evan to turn away from the observation window and request the transcript once the proceedings were over, as he had a meeting to attend. Meanwhile, in her attorney's office, Tessa Bowen paced anxiously on the marble floors, the clicking of her high heels echoing in the room. Her composed facade started to crack, evident from her smudged mascara, chipped nail polish, and last season's designer attire. Frustrated, she slammed the divorce papers onto the mahogany desk, exclaiming, "This is ridiculous. He's trying to leave me with nothing after 15 years of marriage." Her lawyer, a weary woman in her 50s, sighed heavily. "Mrs. Hart," Tessa interrupted, "Ms. Bowen, I've returned to my maiden name." The attorney gestured with her hands. "Given the evidence of your involvement in Mr. Caleb Hart's crimes, along with the documented infidelity, you should consider yourself fortunate that Mr. Hart has chosen not to press criminal charges." "Fortunate?" Tessa's laughter was laced with hysteria. "Caleb is facing prison. His beach house has been confiscated, and I'm supposed to consider myself lucky." The lawyer's voice grew stern. "You engaged in an extramarital affair with your husband's twin brother while assisting him in the theft of intellectual property valued at millions. The prenuptial agreement clearly stipulates that infidelity nullifies all claims to marital assets. You should strongly consider accepting this settlement offer before." Tessa interrupted with urgency. "Before what?" Leaning forward. "I know things about Evan, things that could damage him. Inform him that I wish to meet. Inform him that I can help him comprehend why all of this occurred." The lawyer rose to her feet. "Mr. Hart's instructions are explicit. All communication is channeled through legal representation. Shall we revisit the terms of the settlement?" Tessa collapsed into a chair, her composed facade crumbling. "I never imagined he was always so quiet, so engrossed in his work. I never thought he was capable of what? Standing up for himself?" The attorney collected the divorce documents. "You have 1 day to agree to these terms. If not, Mr. Hart will initiate full legal proceedings and disclose all evidence of your illegal actions to the authorities." Tessa's hands shook as she reached for the papers. Rain began to tap against the office windows. Meanwhile, Evan gazed out of his office window, observing dark storm clouds looming over the city. Behind him, Leela sorted through files on his desk, updating him on the day's events. The board has endorsed the leadership transition strategy, Leela informed him. With your parents' tax evasion accusations and Mr. Langley's illicit activities exposed, they are eager to demonstrate accountability. Regarding the bridge project, independent auditors. After verifying all calculations, construction is set to begin next month. During a conversation with Leela, it was revealed that Tessa had attempted to contact Evan through her lawyer. Leela mentioned that Tessa had come to the office, but was escorted out by security as she was emotional and wanted to explain something to Evan. Evan calmly instructed to send the security footage to Tessa's attorney for the restraining order filing. Later, Leela also informed Evan that his parents were facing criminal charges for tax evasion, and their assets had been frozen by the IRS. Despite the news, Evan remained unfazed, commenting on the timing and focusing on reviewing construction permits at his desk. When asked if he should respond to his parents' plea for help, Evan dismissed the idea, stating that their new situation was not his concern. As the conversation continued, the intercom buzzed, signaling a visitor from the FBI. Final statement from Special Agent Nelson. Evan straightened his tie and nodded, indicating the entrance for the agents. Special Agent Nelson, flanked by two colleagues with federal seals on their files, entered the room. Mr. Hart, we have concluded our investigation into Caleb's activities, Nelson began, presenting the findings. For the corporate espionage and fraud charges, he's looking at a minimum of 10 years. The embezzlement investigation is ongoing, but we followed the money trail back nearly a decade. Placing a document on Evan's desk, Nelson requested his statement on when he first noticed the discrepancies. With precise control, Evan signed where directed. Will there be a trial? Evan inquired. No, Nelson replied. He's agreed to a plea deal. 10 years in federal prison, full restitution, and cooperation in ongoing investigations. Clearing the signed papers, Nelson continued. Caleb tried to implicate you in some schemes, alleging mental instability, but the evidence proved otherwise. As Evan rose from his seat, he asked if there was anything else needed. That's all. Thank you for your cooperation. Nelson hesitated at the doorway. Mr. Hart, in my 20 years of experience in financial crimes, I have never encountered such thorough documentation of an adversary's activities. Did you anticipate this? Evan's smile did not reach his eyes. I believe in being prepared, Agent Nelson. Good day. After the FBI departed, Evan returned to his window, where sunlight bathed the city after the storm clouds had dispersed. Determined to contribute to the city's restoration, his phone buzzed with another tearful voicemail from Tessa, which he promptly deleted. On his desk lay the architectural plans for his innovative bridge design awaiting final approval. Evan believed in planning for the future. A year later, Evan stood before a crowd of reporters and dignitaries, proud of the completed bridge. The gleaming structure showcased groundbreaking engineering and a design that was already attracting interest from universities worldwide for its earthquake resistance. A reporter shouted, "Mr. Hart, how can you ensure the safety of those who will use your bridge?" Evan looked out at the completed bridge, a physical manifestation of his design. A sense of satisfaction washed over him as he felt a profound sense of justice. The ceremony proceeded without a hitch, with politicians giving speeches, ribbons being cut, and photographers capturing the moment as the bridge was officially opened to the public. Notably, absent from the speeches were any mentions of Caleb, currently serving time in federal prison, nor Tessa, who had fled the state after a tough divorce settlement. Evan's own family, tainted by financial crimes and ethical violations, also went unmentioned. Their lives had unraveled as Evan meticulously executed his plans while constructing his greatest achievement. The bridge stood as a testament to his work, a symbol of lasting strength and integrity. Amidst the surrounding celebrations, Evan allowed himself a small, satisfied smile, knowing he had emerged from the ordeal as a victor. His revenge and engineering prowess, both executed to perfection, the bridge stood as a testament to precision and strategic planning, embodying the consequences of betrayal and the triumph of patience, intelligence, and well-thought-out vengeance. Evan Hart's tale of retribution became a fabled narrative within engineering circles, circulating in hushed tones in corporate settings and academic discussions. Instead of a cautionary tale on disloyalty, it served as a profound illustration of the unnoticed power held by persevering individuals who meticulously prepare for every possible outcome. At 46, Evan gazed out from his penthouse office, located at the apex of the Hart Engineering Group's headquarters, his presence now exuding even greater authority. His once dark hair now streaked with silver, his triumph had sharpened his ambitions. Under his guidance, the company had thrived, expanding threefold, while his groundbreaking bridge design ushered in a new era of earthquake-resistant architecture. Alongside him, Leela Park, now the Chief Operations Officer, played a crucial role in this ongoing success. During the morning briefing, she stood beside him, having earned his trust through her loyalty during the crisis. Providing the latest update on Caleb, she accessed the details on her tablet. His third appeal was denied, with 5 years remaining on his sentence pending good behavior, which, according to his prison records, is lacking, she reported. Evans caught his reflection in the glass, a slight smile on his face. Is his cellmate still leaking information to him? He inquired. Yes, she confirmed. Caleb spends his days in the prison library, sending letters to industry contacts. Nobody responds anymore. Continuing, she mentioned he even tried to publish a memoir claiming his innocence, but no publisher dared touch it after our legal team intervened. Pausing for a moment, she added, Tessa has resorted to working as a real estate agent in Phoenix. Her attempts at a luxury lifestyle have failed, with clients discovering her past involvement in corporate espionage. Last month, she tried dating another wealthy executive, but her past caught up to her pretty quickly, didn't it? Lila remarked with a sense of accomplishment. The divorce settlement's strict conditions prevent her from making any profit from revealing books or interviews. Now she resides in a modest one-bedroom apartment and drives a decade-old Ford. Evan shifted his gaze away from the window. My parents are still down in that little Florida condo. My dad's efforts to consult for engineering firms keep falling through. It seems nobody wants financial dodgers giving advice on their projects. And my mom. The bridge club gave her the boot after she tried to defend Caleb's innocence for the third time. Vivian is doing as best as she can, Lila chimed in. She's working as a paralegal in Nebraska following her disbarment. Last year, she attempted to regain her bar admission, but an anonymous package detailing her involvement in the patent theft scheme was sent to the Ethics Committee. Needless to say, her application was rejected. Lila grinned and Evan nodded in agreement, clearly satisfied. And the company's stocks are on the rise. 300% since I took full control. The Hart method of earthquake-resistant design is now being taught in engineering schools worldwide. We've secured contracts on 3 continents, and Engineering Monthly named me the most innovative structural engineer of the century. Lila checked her notes. Also, Caleb's beach house, the one the FBI seized. We bought it at auction for pennies on the dollar. Demolition starts next week. The land will be donated to the city for a public park, which will be named after your bridge design. Evan's smile widened slightly. The property's destruction would be filmed and the footage sent to Caleb's prison cell. A final small reminder of the price of betrayal. The industry dinner is tonight, Lila reminded him. They're presenting you with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Several board members suggested you might want to mention reconciliation with your family in your speech. Maybe show forgiveness. Interesting suggestion, Evan replied, adjusting his custom suit specially for the men who maintained their positions by proving their ignorance of Caleb's crimes. Lila's phone suddenly malfunctioned. Update from Phoenix. Tessa has just lost another job due to her employer uncovering her past. She is requesting her attorney to reach out to you regarding amending the divorce terms. The standard response has been already dispatched, Evan stated. All conditions are final in accordance with Section 8.3 of the agreement. Lila hesitated. She appended a message expressing her longing for you, stating she has changed. Evan's laughter lacked warmth. Even after 5 years, she believes emotional manipulation may still be effective. Forward the message to her therapist, the one the investigators discovered she has been deceiving about her recovery. Lila nodded. noting it down. Lastly, concerning the junior engineer you promoted last month. The background check revealed he had been disclosing project information to a rival. Evan grinned coldly. It has been dealt with. Anonymous evidence has been sent to the competitor's board, demonstrating his double dealing. This afternoon, I'll be dismissed from my job, with the official explanation being ethical concerns. It's ironic, as he attempted to emulate Caleb. Leela's smile echoed Evan's, sending a cold shiver down the spine. The company's ethical training module now covers the topic of corporate allegiance. Your narrative is essential reading for all new employees, not the sanctioned version, but the hushed one that delves into the repercussions for those who cross Evan Hart. Evan glanced at his watch, noting the imminent awards ceremony in the waiting car below. You are scheduled to deliver the keynote presentation on establishing trust foundations. Leela's acknowledgement carried a hint of irony, perfectly matching the circumstances. The industry journal sought to publish another feature on how Evan turned personal betrayal into professional success. Give it the green light, he instructed. Gathering his documents, Evan made sure to include information about Caleb's current whereabouts behind bars. As they made their way to the elevator, Leela cast a quick glance at him. Her tablet one final time, update from the prison. Caleb tried to join the engineering education program, but the warden denied his application after receiving an anonymous letter detailing his corporate espionage history. Evan's only response was a subtle nod. 5 years had passed, and still his revenge was unfolding precisely as planned. Each quiet turn of the wheel had diminished his betrayers a little more. The elevator descended toward the waiting car. Tonight, he would accept yet another award. His success was now a constant reminder to everyone who had underestimated him. His parents would watch the ceremony from their modest Florida condo. Caleb would read about it in his prison cell. Tessa would see it on social media as she floundered in her attempts to rebuild her life. Vivian would file it away in the legal documents she now processed instead of writing. And Evan? He would continue to build his empire, his reputation for brilliance growing, matched only by the whispered war. Only a fool begins to never cross the quiet man who plans in silence and strikes without mercy. The elevator reached the lobby. Evan straightened his tie, ready to accept another accolade, while his enemies continued to pay their perpetual penance. What he had learned was that the sweetest revenge wasn't just about destroying those who had betrayed him. It was about thriving while they withered, about building monuments while they languished in obscurity, about ensuring that every day of their lives served as a reminder of the morning they thought they could destroy Evan Hart's, never realizing that they were merely laying the foundation for their own destruction. Leela held the car door open for him. Evan smiled, the expression as calculated and precise as every blueprint he had drawn. The car pulled away from the curb, carrying him toward another triumph. Meanwhile, somewhere in a prison cell, small apartment, a Florida condo, and a Nebraska legal office, his betrayers faced another downfall. Let me know if you need further assistance. Their act of betrayal had resulted in losing everything, while his pursuit of revenge had led him to gaining the whole world. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and remember to like, share, and subscribe for more content.